That went out on Channel 4, national TV. You tell me why he wasn't arrested. I'd have been arrested. We all know I'd have been arrested. I'll get arrested if I drop a bit of litter as we walk out that door. He was not arrested for attacking me. I could tell you countless other times like this.
About that.
Yeah, this was basically the story of how political dissidents who may commit thought crime are now being kidnapped off the streets of Britain. There was an individual who was quite prominent in the anti-Islamic extremism movement who was going to attend a Draw Mohammed cartoon contest last week. The police rearrested him for a previous charge which he had already been released for in order to prevent him from attending this conference, literally just so he wouldn't offend Muslims. So that story, we've done a report on that outside Big Ben. That's a massive story. It's going to be up tomorrow before the show.
So the English Defence League has been organising protests around the country in recent weeks. The first was here in the northeast. Police estimated that around 1,500 took part. Protesters were heard shouting, "Whose streets? Our streets." Tommy Robinson, leader of the EDL. You can assert until you're blue in the face that these are peaceful protests, but your supporters were heard shouting racist abuse. How do you explain that?
What racist abuse? You know,
I can't say it
we've just been talking
now
about
at this time on television.
We've been talking about racism. I'm from Luton Town. You're talking about racism, okay? There is no racial tensions in the town I come from. When David Cameron says multiculturalism has failed, Sikhism, Hinduism, Jews, they haven't failed to integrate into society. Islam has failed. When we talk against an ideology, if I'm against Scientology, are you going to call me a racist? I oppose the Islamist ideology. That does not make us racist. You can't talk about what we said that was racist because there was nothing said that was racist at the demonstration.
But we've read the quotes in the press.
Yeah, in the press. When you talk about the press, you just said 1,500 people there. There were 7,000 people there. So you've got a biased press that are misreporting.
So more people chanting.
More people chanting. More people at the demonstration. But what is the press's agenda to play that down? And then when we talk about Islamophobia, there is Islamophobia, of course there is. There is Islamophobia because our police force actually were too scared to tackle grooming and rape of our youth because of fear of being called a racist. That's Islamophobia, not the Islamophobia. Phobia is an irrational fear, okay? It's quite rational to fear female genital mutilation of 2,000 British Muslim girls every year, terrorism like happened to Lee Rigby. Like 2 days ago, 6 Muslims who were sentenced to 19, 20 years each because they were planning to blow up the English Defence League. Due to the blasphemy law within the Quran. Okay, there's a link to all these things. The same with the Muslim grooming gangs. As a common denominator, you have to look for what the issue is, what links them all. They're all Muslim.
I get confused when you say Islam, and then you say Islamist, and then you say Muslim, because they're different things.
They are. I'm from Luton Town.
I'm going to talk to...
Yeah, I'm from Luton Town. I know so many Muslims, yeah, and I'm sitting here. If you take these people's careers away and their money away, they won't be sitting there. I'm a volunteer, okay? There's nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer. What has happened to me through having this opinion and speaking out the way I do, it's destroyed my life, it's destroyed my wife's life, it's destroyed my mother's life. I live with constant death threats. I've got some of them here if you want to read when we talk about a 2-tier policing system. I have to wear a bulletproof vest. I've got people wanting to murder me and massacre me.
Well, then stop being a racist and a bigot.
Racist? Can you please explain one thing I've ever said?
I am a British citizen. I was born in this country, and I do not spout off rubbish like you do. Okay?
No, what am I saying that's rubbish?
I haven't got death threats. Do you know why? It's because I'm a nice person.
Please explain.
If
you talk against Islam, you'll have death threats. Right? Please explain what I've said that's racist. Please explain. Response to Nazis turning up on the streets with you.
A message to Anjem Chowdhury. We, the English Defence League, we will contest your kind as our forefathers did.
At this stage, not really much of a mention of Islam, because we're opposing Anjem Chowdhury and his group. That's it. That's our tactics. Now we have Nazis on the streets. We need to let them know they're not welcome. On the first Birmingham demo, 5 Nazis were got put on the coach with us. One of them gave a Hitler salute as he got on. It kicked off when he got to the top of that coach with Luton's lads, yeah? So you have to realise, which I'll show you a video in a minute, where all his friends are talking about this fight that incurred, yeah? And it's a fight that incurred because we don't tolerate that. We would not tolerate that extremism coming from our community, but we see it tolerated in many communities. Now, when we set fire to swastika, not many other groups have done that. Not many other groups have really put it on Nazis. When this happened, I had a phone call from a man called Nazi Nick, a German. You can all Google him, yeah? I had a phone call and I was told to hand over the control of the English Defence League, hand over the websites, hand over this. I didn't know who he was. I told him in no uncertain terms that it was not going to happen. We had an argument on the phone. I'd highlighted myself to some of the world's most feared Nazis. I didn't know who this man was. Only later, my friends, when I was telling him about this Nazi Nick, some fella from Germany, he said, "Do you know who he is?" I said, "No." He said, "He tried to overthrow the South African government." That's when I thought, damn, well, I just put it on him.
Definitely feel there's more tension in the air now that we're walking through here.
Yeah, of course. Luton's a very divided town.
You were here when you walked through.
I was the leader, mate, I was.
That's racist.
No, it's not, Bob, no.
Why do you think it's racist? Oh dear, what was that? What did they just say to you?
Pussy.
Oh God, I don't know if this is a good idea.
It was clear that Robinson's past would not be quickly forgotten or forgiven.
Don't point your camera at me, I'll break your camera, I'm telling you. Go on, then you got something to say.
What have you got something to say?
Come here, hey, fuck you. What have you got to say? Huh? Fuck you, don't listen.
Oh God. Oh God. No.
What do you mean? Say something there. Pussy. Go on.
Yeah, I know, man. I'm lucky to slop from that, Bob.
Remember my face, yeah?
Welcome to Luton. Did you get that on camera? Hi, I've just been attacked in Luton Town Centre.
How are we doing, all right?
Yeah, good. Where'd they go?
Tell me what's happened.
It was very, very frightening. Yet again, I found myself in the middle of an ugly scene.
Get on with your life, man. No point causing a commotion.
It seemed like the whole town was surrounding us, and everyone had an opinion.
Obviously, he's got all the people behind him, all the white people, yeah? And we're in a white man's world right now.
Just now from London. Welcome to you, Tommy.
How you doing, mate? You right?
I'm all right. Now, what happened?
Basically, I was on my way home. First of all, I was at the service station. I had a little argument at the service station with a car with about 4 young Muslims in. They were shouting me out the window. We had a verbal exchange. I didn't think anything more of it. The police are now looking down the line that it was something to do with that car. That was a white Astra. But then as I was approaching, coming out the back end of Luton, I had a car flashing me over, and my battery had just died. My battery died about half hour before, and the last thing my wife had messaged me was, "Where the hell are you?" Yeah, because I wasn't home yet. And then I was on my way home, I had a black Safira flashing me, which is exactly the same as what my wife drives. I looked in the wing mirror, it had a girl driving it. I pulled in, I got out, and as soon as I got out, literally, an Asian lad dived out of the passenger seat, and I could tell by his mannerisms exactly what was going to happen. I could tell exactly what was going to happen, and it did happen. Me and him started fighting, and another couple got out of the car, and I got beaten up. I was knocked unconscious, and next thing I know, some fella was waking me up who pulled over when he saw what was going on. And that was pretty much it.
Did they say anything while they were doing this?
It's about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
They did. There's been a lot of rumours here. There's been a lot of rumours floating around. The reason why a lot of rumours have floated around is because when I was in hospital, I turned my phone on. I literally got 2 or 3 text messages before the battery died again, and then I was in there for 8 or 9 hours. So the rumour mill went wild as to what was said and what happened, what my injuries were, where I was. But the first thing the fella said was, "This is for our mosque." Now, locally in Luton, we've been battling against a mega mosque. The local Islamic community bought a bit of land for £1.5 million off our council. We fought against that because the council had promised the land for affordable housing for our community. Now, 2 days before, the day before or 2 days before, I'm not too sure, this attack, they found out that they are not getting that land and they are not getting that mega mosque, which would have been one of Europe's biggest Shia mosques. And they got the information they weren't wanted. So that's what the man said, the first thing he said, which our newspapers have failed to report locally. Our newspapers have also failed to report that this is a the police are treating this as a racially motivated attack. In our local paper, they put there is no motive as to yet. Now, when I spoke to the police have got it down as a racially motivated attack. So that shows you the selective journalism we're up against, the media campaign we're up against. They won't even report that it is a racist attack. And the country's most secure and worst prison in Britain. I went to Wood Hill. Anyone can look it up. You can look it up yourself. It's a maximum security prison. I went there for a mortgage fraud charge, which is not right. It doesn't work. It's unheard of. When I went there were 6 Muslims in there who were in there. And bearing in mind, I spent time in this very same prison in 2012. Now, when I was in the prison in 2012, everything had to be locked for me to walk anywhere. Yeah? When I go in this time, I'm put straight out. And I'm sitting there thinking,
I know what's going to happen here. What's going on? What's changed from 2012 to 2014? The threat against me has got worse. We know that there's more people that want to kill me now. And the wing they actually were putting me on, which they were trying to put me on, held 6 Muslims that were doing 30 years in prison because they were caught with guns, bombs and IEDs on their way to kill me. So that they were in there for trying to kill me, and the prison officer actually opened up my door and said, "Do not leave this cell, your life depends on it." And I knew then I was in big trouble. And I knew then people were pulling strings in order to let them have an opportunity to get me.
And now as we're talking through, we all remember September 11th. I think everyone should remember where they were on September 11th. I was at Luton Airport on my apprenticeship. I remember everything. And then I remember getting a phone call again about Luton sixth form from a friend who was at the sixth form. That's the age I was at. I was probably 18, but going back to then, saying that Muslims were cheering and celebrating. A lot of these things may sound unbelievable. Yeah? When I then went to my local shops in my estate, I see Magnificent 19 posters across the estate, yeah? Glorifying these people. On the first anniversary we saw in my hometown of Luton, imagine this is your town where you live. You've got posters glorifying terrorism. You've got billboards. As you walk up your street, the billboards are now painted over. Anything showing a woman's flesh is covered up. This is all to fit in with Sharia. And it's from certain sections, a minority, but a dangerous minority within the town. I want to take you through and I want you to try and understand, as me growing up, the changes I'm seeing, they're not for the good, okay? They're not for freedom. So this will just show some posters. That's the covering up and billboards, the Magnificent 19 posters on a phone box. This area here, I used to come down this area with my mum when I was younger. Just go shopping. This area now is literally just a complete Muslim area. It's got 19 mosques all within a stone's throw, and plans for another 6.
So driving through this area, are you unwelcome here?
Oh yeah, I'm completely unwelcome here, yeah.
What would happen if you were to walk through the streets here?
If I was walking the streets, I'd get battered. If I tried to walk from one end to the other, I wouldn't get out. Because they get on their phones so quickly. There's Saiful Islam, that one there. Yeah, he's the leader. Yeah. What? What have I got to talk to you about? What have I got to talk to you about? What have I got to talk to you about?
What have you got to say about Islam and that, innit?
Yeah, I have,
yeah. Yeah? So why didn't you say it now?
What do you want me to say?
Yeah?
It's ideology, it's got no place.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's got no place, bruv.
And what you
Sharia
got?
law's got no place in this country.
Got?
What do you mean, what have I got?
Go on, tell me,
innit?
what do you stand for?
What do I stand for?
Yeah, what do you stand for?
Integration, bruv. I don't stand for paedophilic practices, yeah?
Yeah? What do you stand for? Go on, tell me.
What do you mean, what do I stand for? What do you stand for? How's it racism? How's it racism? How's it racist to oppose a fascist ideology?
Fascist ideology?
It is
And
fascist.
what do you? You're racist.
How am I racist?
You hate Asians,
what
yeah?
race? What race are Asians? What race are Muslims?
I heard. Come on, Clown. Where are you running away from?
Because I know what you like, bruv. You have about 100 you in a minute. You f***ing little chief. You f***ing chief. Prick. You see? That is Islam. You f***ing little prick. The thing is, you get out of this car, they'll be here from everywhere. Watch how many of them now turn up. Watch how many of them now turn up. I'll do your window up so you can't get out, because I'm telling you, look. F***ing pussy. Watch what I get with your f***ing houses, you f***ing mug. F***ing tramp. That is what they're like, you see? Now you understand, innit? 2012, I spent 20 weeks. I flew to America on September 11th on someone else's passport. Pretty stupid thing to do, yeah? I got 10 months in jail for it. I thought it was quite harsh, but I got 10 months in jail. I spent 20 weeks on solitary confinement. Solitary confinement, 23 and a half hours a day. I was locked up. For half hour a day, I got let out to walk around a cage on my own. Put back in. Meals brought to your room. They're not allowed to do that, actually. You're only allowed to do that for 30 days because of your mental health. It's not good for your mental health. To get around that, they moved me from Wandsworth block, Bedford block, Wood Hill block, Wandsworth block, Wayland block. I was not allowed out of my cell because I'd be killed. My family noticed the difference in me as a person when they come to visit. Because of this, you see, fear is paralysing. And it's fear that paralysed Rotherham's police force. It's fear that's paralysed our politicians. It's fear that has paralysed the British public to put up and tolerate with many of the things that are happening in this country. My family contacted human rights lawyers. They explained, listen, our son has spent 12 weeks in solitary confinement. Listed all the things. All the human rights lawyers are like this. You've definitely got a case. This is out of order. We'll get a judicial review. Yeah, he's the leader of the English Defence League. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, we can't represent him. That's how toxic it's become. That's how powerful political correctness is. My family then looked for who represented Jamie Bulger's killer. Child killer. Cut off the penis of a child and fed it to him. Disgusting, sick. They contacted him. Went through the same scenario, explained the situation, got to the fact that I was a leader of the English Defence League. Whoa, I can't touch him. He represented a child killer. He would not represent me. That is how toxic it become to speak out and be critical of what I've seen.
3 minutes late. Jump in my car.
What's that? No, jump out. Hold on, I ain't got a problem. Come on. I'm just going about my business working, bro. I'm just going about my business working.
Are you racist?
What's that?
Are you racist?
You what's that?
Are you racist?
Hold on.
What are you filming me for?
I can't film what I want, bruv.
Are you racist?
I film what I want, bruv.
Are you racist?
I don't like Islam, no.
Why?
Well,
I always meet my friends outside. I can't have family to live with me because it's too dangerous. I live in...
See, this is 2014 in the Borough of London. 2014. Do you know what it's like to see a grown man brought to tears? Do you know how many families I meet that are brought to tears in Luton and towns like that? The reason why I'm showing you these videos, I want you to understand this is real life. This is not made up. When we're talking about issues and the reason why we're passionate about these issues, we're not making it up. And at the same time, he's the first to say the vast majority of Muslims are not involved in this in any way. But there is a problem. The reason why I met him, I've been talking to him for 5 years. A lot of people then with the English Defence League, they don't go to the police anymore in towns like Luton. They contacted us to talk about the issues, talk about what's happening with their families, how they're feeling persecuted, etc. I went to meet him because he's moving to Israel, because he feels he has to move to Israel if he wants to be safe. His only crime is that he's Jewish and he's living within a Muslim ghetto. Let's talk about Cologne. Well, it's not just Cologne though. New Year's Eve. It took 5 days for the BBC to start reporting on it. But New Year's Eve, 100 women. Some of them raped, some of them robbed, some of them scarred for life after firecrackers were stuck down their tops. One girl had her knickers ripped off her as she walked through the city centre. So, by a group of 1,000 men. 1,000 Arab Muslim men who are refugees. The police officer on the scene, who 8 of them were arrested, said they were refugees. Okay, but yet now the German politicians and the press are coming out saying we have no idea who they are. I'll put this article up there. Yeah, they have no idea who it is, but it's not refugees. Well, if you don't know who it is, how do you know it's not refugees? It's Arab Muslim men. And what we've found out now is that this didn't just happen in Cologne. It happened in Stuttgart. It happened in Frankfurt. It happened in Dusseldorf. It happened across Germany. And I'd like to say it's not just Germany. It's like 100 women, 40 women in Stuttgart, terrorised. And Germany are coming out and their politicians are saying, we're shocked at what has happened. Shocked? Why are you shocked? Well, everyone's been telling you what's going to happen. They're coming from countries where if a woman commits adultery, they dig a hole in the floor and smash rocks at them. They believe in their own countries that their own women are property and they're allowed to beat them. So why are you shocked when they come to our countries, yeah, when you invite them, Angela Merkel, into our countries, you invite aggressive, young Muslim men into our countries and they act, this is the most frustrating thing, you give these men clothing, you give them housing, you give them food, you give them shelter. We are paying for that. Well, you give them everything they need and they go out and they mob up and they attack women. They attack dozens and dozens of women on New Year's Eve. They beat them, they rape them and they rob them after everything that's been done. Why are they doing that? They're doing that because they're already taught that that women are second rate, but our women, non-Muslim women, are scum. They're prostitutes, they're slags. You've invited these people with this mindset and this hatred towards our countries and our women, and where are the feminists on this issue? 1,400, and look across what's happening, 1,400 girls in Rotherham were raped by Muslim men. Across Europe, Sweden has the second highest rape rate in the world. Sweden.
Malmo, blonde-haired women are dyeing their hair black because they're being dragged off the street and beaten and raped. In Oslo, 100% of the violent rapes in 1 year were Muslim men. 90% of all the rapes in Oslo that year were Muslim men. That means if we didn't invite Muslims into our country, there would have been no violent rapes in Oslo that year. Okay? So when Donald Trump makes statements like he says, there are reasons. And as we can all see now, with what's happening in Cologne, it frustrates me so much because we've been trying to warn us. I believe that one of the victims who's been attacked by 30 Muslim men, she said her and her friend were surrounded by these Muslim men who groped and ripped and abused her and sexually abused her. She was one of the people welcoming the refugees. Wake up. To understand, you have to understand the mindset and the ideology and the countries these people are coming from. You don't see a woman in these countries. You do not see women. It's just men. They're forced in the house. When they do come out of the house, they're covered from head to toe in tents. You don't see them. And then all of a sudden you bring them men into our westernised countries and you let them loose on the streets. And then you start scratching your head when they're acting like animals, raping our women. It's a high time that Europe wakes up. The main reason why we're trying to prevent, and if I sound angry, I'm passionate about this issue, we're trying to prevent this happening. This is coming to the UK. In fact, it's already come to the UK. One English girl has been raped already by 5 Syrian refugees. We've had Syrian refugees blowing themselves up and killing 130 people on Paris. The blood's on all your refugee welcomes hands. It's not on our hands. We're trying to warn and foresay and say what's going to happen. The next year, the EU predict up to 3 million more Muslim men are coming to our continent. We have to wake up. This has to stop. And if it's going to be happening, people have to show a resistance to it. Pegida have been doing that. Angela Merkel says that Pegida have hate in their hearts. Angela Merkel has hatred in her hearts. Hatred in her hearts for our culture, for German people, for her own race. She has hatred in her hearts. It's her fault. All these women who have been attacked, that's her fault. It's her government's fault. And what's the local mayor's solution to this? To start telling women that they have to cross the road if they see a man. Well, that's not how Europe works. That's not how it's going to work. Women should not be... The German officials now coming out saying that Cologne city centre at night is a no-go zone for women. Why? Well, because you've invited all these hostile Muslims into the country who want to attack them under the guise of diversity. It's insane. It's insane. And so, I'm sorry if this is going on as a rant, but everyone has to start waking up. You can't talk about humanity. I had women say to me, it's a humanitarian crisis. Yeah, well, my humanity stands with European women who are going to fall victim and be raped across Europe like war booty. Because that's what happens, you see, when Muslims go to war. That's what's happening with ISIS. That's why Yazidi girls are being taken slaves, because they're allowed to. It's all justified 14 times by the Quran. They can take non-Muslim, whatever the right arm possesses, they can take non-Muslim women as sexual slaves. That's what's happened in Germany. That's what's happened in Rotherham. That's what's happened in Malmo. That's what's happening across Europe. Okay? We need to get organised. We need to get organised in Germany. We need to get organised. We need to get organised. We need to all organise. It's no good if you're sitting here, you're watching this and you feel as angry as me and frustrated as me. There's no point in not doing anything. All we're asking as organisations, there's many organisations now like Pegida across to Europe. Every country's got a representative organisation. All we're asking is you stand with us. You walk with us in silence. You show that you're against what's happening. Because we have to show we're against it. Because our politicians are not stopping it. The police. Did the police stand up and protect the women in Cologne? No, they didn't. They didn't. They stayed away. They stayed away. How could the police deal with a mob of 1,000 young Muslim men? That's 1,000. Angela Merkel, you've let in 1 million. You've let in 1 million.